Earlier today, I did a segment on Roger Stone getting 3 years and 4 months in prison. And one of the big concerns in the Roger Stone sentencing is that there seems to be a double standard. So many people on the right are calling for Trump to pardon Roger Stone because of the tainted jury pool, or because these other people who were involved in this false investigation, Crossfire Hurricane, have never been held accountable for all of the lies, deception, and failures that occurred in that investigation. Well, now we have another example from the Daily Mail, exclusive. Ilhan Omar did marry her brother, reveals Somali community leader, who says both she and her husband told him Ahmed Almi was her sibling and she would do what she had to do to get him papers to keep him in the U.S. When this story first dropped, a bunch of people started investigating. They were quickly smeared as conspiracy theorists and, purveyors of fake news and far-right bloggers and whatever other smear the media could think of. But eventually some mainstream papers were forced to acknowledge that there was a lot of circumstantial evidence showing Ilhan Omar very well may have married her brother. In fact, the Star Tribune in Minnesota said this man may be her brother. Everything was immediately smeared and dismissed. I was accused of being a conspiracy theorist for literally reading a Star Tribune article and having the source on the screen like I do. Media Matters tried smearing me for it. I'm not saying it's true, but I bring up the double standard issue because why is there no investigation into this level, to these types of accusations? I mean, a preliminary investigation. It may be right now, we've heard the FBI and ICE are looking into this, but we don't know. And apparently they've said there is no criminal inquiry. They may just be following up on tip. I have no idea. For now, it appears the Daily Mail has procured a witness who is claiming to know them and know that, yes, this guy was her brother. And there's actually some other documents they've provided as evidence. Let's read. Daily Mail says, Squad Congresswoman Ilhan Omar told friends years ago that the man who went on to become her second husband was in fact her brother. And now for the first time, one of those friends has come forward to reveal exactly how Omar and Ahmed Almi scandalized the Somali community in Minneapolis. Abd Hakim Osman is the first person to go on record to speak of how Omar said she wanted to get her brother papers so he could stay in the United States at a time when she was married to her first husband, Ahmed Hersi. But hardly anyone realized that meant marrying him. No one knew there had been a wedding until the media turned up the marriage certificate years later, Osman, 40, exclusively told the Daily Mail. Osman's revelations are sure to renew calls for an investigation into the Minnesota freshman representative who has repeatedly refused to answer questions on her marriage to Almi. She originally said the idea that the spouses were also siblings were baseless, absurd rumors, accusing journalists of Islamophobia, but has since stayed quiet. One of the reasons she stayed quiet is that social media posts emerged showing that a man she identified as her father had the same name as the guy she later married, which sounds like their brother and sister. So one of the big issues is that Ilhan Omar is a Somali refugee, and so there's no real paperwork here. It's hard to know. It's hard to prove. And one of the ideas in this, theory is that when she moved here and found a new family, they changed her name to be with her new family. And thus, this guy, Ahmed, this other guy she ended up marrying, Almi, is actually her brother, and their names are different because she ended up moving. But she did on social media identify some guy with the same name as her dad. And I think maybe her father-in-law, I don't know. That's not what she tried claiming, though. It's really, really weird. The naming system, as it works, is like son of, I guess. So that's why it wasn't something as like it could have been her father-in-law. I don't know. I'll just read because I got to admit, I don't know a lot about how naming conventions work for Muslims. Her spokesman told the Daily Mail that she will not comment on her personal life. Omar married her first husband, Hersi, in 2002 in a Muslim ceremony that like many in the immigrant community, was not registered with the state. Their first child, Israel, was born the following year and a second followed. But in the late 2000s, Almi appeared in Minneapolis, said Osman, who referred to Hersi by his nickname, Southside, throughout the interview. People began noticing that Ilhan and Southside, Hersi, were often with a very effeminate young guy who spoke in Somali through an interpreter. He was very feminine in the way he dressed. He would wear light lipstick and pink clothes and very, very short shorts in the summer. People started whispering about him. Hersi and Ilhan both told me it was Ilhan's brother, and he had been living in London, but he was mixing with what were seen as bad influences that the family did not like. So they sent him to Minneapolis as rehab. Osman, who runs a popular Facebook blog called Zerdashek, which comments on Somali issues, said that Omar kept her marriage to Elmi quiet, with no one from the Somali community invited to the wedding. He explained, when Hirsi and Ilhan got married, a lot of people were invited. It was a big Islamic wedding, uniting two large clans in the Minneapolis community. I would say there were 100 to 150 people there. But he said when she married Elmi, no one even knew about it. Osman said at the time, Hirsi was better known than Omar among Somalis. He was a footballer. He promoted a lot of Somali shows. He was very popular. So the scandal was about Hirsi's brother-in-law more than Ilhan's brother. It has long been rumored that Omar and Elmi are brother and sister. But because of a lack of paperwork in war-torn Somalia, where they were born, positive proof of their relationship has never been uncovered. To a certain degree, though, there are photos that she purged from the internet. The first report came from a blog, right? I'm not going to read that. They say, as soon as Ilhan Omar married him, he started university at her alma mater, North Dakota State University, where he graduated in 2012. Shortly thereafter, he moved to Minneapolis, where he was living in a public housing complex and was later evicted. He then returned to the United Kingdom. The New York Post reported last month that the FBI was investigating the marriage and had met with a source in Minneapolis who handed over a trove of documents related to the marriage. Any findings were to be shared with the Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the U.S. Department of Education, the paper reported. Anyone found guilty of committing marriage fraud faces up to 5 years in jail and a fine of up to $250,000. They say Elmi and Omar married on February 12, 2009 at Hennepin County office in Eden Prairie, Minnesota, southwest of Minneapolis. Their marriage license shows. Omar said she and Hirsi had separated in 2008, and because their faith-based union was never recognized by law, neither is their separation. Elmi and Omar said they lived together at an address in Columbia Heights, a suburb on the north side of the city. Now, what's interesting is that all three of them shared an address. The marriage was conducted by Christian minister Walicia Harris. When DailyMail.com approached her last year, she would not discuss the ceremony or why a Muslim couple would have asked her to marry them. She and her husband, Marcus, run the Great and Mighty Works Ministries in Richfield, Minnesota, which is described on its Facebook page as a non-denominational, Bible-believing, Bible-teaching, and Bible-living ministry that believes in being a living example of Jesus, the Anointed One. We can then see these photos of Omar's husband acting effeminately. Here's the marriage application. They say in a Facebook message, Marcus Harris told the Daily Mail, "My wife doesn't want to be involved or interviewed about Congresswoman Omar. It's not going to happen, not now, and not ever." After their marriage, Omar and Elmi moved to Fargo, where they both attended North Dakota State University. She said she needed to get papers for her brother to go to school. We all thought she was just getting papers together to allow him to stay in this country. Once she had the papers, they could apply for student loans. They both moved to North Dakota to go to school, but she was still married to Hirsi in the Somali way. The only marriage that mattered was the one in the mosque. Ilhan came back to Minneapolis at the time to see her family, but her brother didn't come with her. Osman believes Elmi and Omar sought out someone outside the Somali community to conduct the ceremony because an imam would have known they were related and would have refused to marry them. Osman, who was confined to a wheelchair after contracting polio before he moved to the U.S. in 2004, said he got to know Hirsi well in his first few years in Minneapolis. They are the same age, both having been born in January 1980. They originally met when Hirsi was working in a barber shop and when they both regularly ate at a now defunct Indian Ocean restaurant when Hirsi opened his own business, Urban Hookah, which is also now closed. Osman occasionally helped out at the till. So, okay, I think we get the point. Basically, you have a guy in the community saying they knew that Omar and this guy were brother and sister, and they didn't realize she was actually going to marry the dude. So one of the theories that has been brought up is that she married him so he could go to school. People on the left have tried dismissing this, saying, as a brother and sister, you can petition to have your brother come to the country. However, petitioning for a sibling can take much, much longer than for a spouse. So the argument is the reason she married him was so that he could get quick access to school, to get loans, essentially exploit the system. And yes, she could have done it as a brother and sister, but that could take up to 10 years. So this was expediting the process. Basically, immigration fraud. I'm not saying any of this is true. I have no idea why this guy, Abdi Hakim Osman, would be saying these things, why the news would be reporting it. But it stands to reason, based on much of the social media evidence and a lot of what Ilhan Omar had purged and deleted and tried to cover up, that there's at least something fishy going on. Whatever it might be, I don't know. But I'll throw it back to the double standard idea. You'd think all of this, especially the statement, would be enough for there to be a public, request, like an inquiry, at least a preliminary investigation. Maybe that's happening now. The FBI has collected some documents. So that's fair. But I kind of feel like nothing will happen with this, even if it is or isn't true. No one will hear anything. It's going to slowly fizzle away. There's not going to be any grand investigations. They're not going to try and figure out whether or not she actually did these things. Maybe they are, but I really, really doubt it. Because as we often see with Hillary Clinton, with Roger Stone, with McCabe, with all of these people in the federal government, in the FBI, and the intelligence agencies, it's never going to happen. There's no real justice. It's justice for me, but not for thee. The lowly people in, the peasants, yeah, you'll get locked up and throw away the key. But if you're nobility, then you can buy your way out. Nothing bad's going to happen to you. Now, they say the same thing about Trump making these pardons, and to an extent, I'll agree with it. Rod Blagojevich should not have been pardoned. But come on, man. We know how the double standard works, and we've all seen it. You get some dude who steals billions of dollars through big schemes, and he gets a slap on the wrist and probation, and some dude walks into a grocery store and snatches a couple $100 out of a register, and he goes to prison for years. Neither of those are good things, but I certainly don't believe anything will come from this. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next segment tomorrow at 10 a.m., but I think I'm going to have a great podcast for you all tonight. YouTube.com/TimCastIRL. New show, 8 p.m. Stick around. We'll see what happens. I'll see you whenever I see you.